different than we did. They didn't wear shoes. They didn't, wear dresses. They didn't go to the grocery stores. And so most colonial settlers looked at them as savage. But yet that's not what they were. And so, is it possible for someone to be able to run around barefooted in the woods at play? I've found all kinds of impressions, that are deep, something heavy, left a mark in the ground, and it had a kind of a shape to it. And I looked for these because it's curious. I find other impressions that you could definitely see the side, but I never did find anything really definite. I found depth with toes, where like something had jumped on the ball of its feet. I found, some of them I could see the footprint as plain as day, but yet it wasn't plain as day. It was always in the form of maybe a muddy spot, a washed out spot, a long, elongated. I mean, it wasn't, I just wasn't finding them. My very first one I ever found, all I found was where the balls of the toes, where it had jumped across an 8-foot mud hole. Pause. Then I found this. Now, when most people look at this, they go, well, that's a human's foot. Hit play. Pause. And I say, you know what? You're probably right. It could be a human's foot. Absolutely. It's shaped a lot like a human's foot. It has kind of a narrow heel. I can't really tell which way the arch goes. I don't know if it goes to the left or to the right. It looks kind of odd. But I'm wondering, why is the rock in the middle of it like that? Because I know me and my tender feet, a rock in the insole, I'm going to be pulling my leg up really quick. So I'm looking at this footprint. I'm looking at it. And then I get thinking about, where it was at. 2.5 miles in Bankhead National Forest. And yet it was the only track on the entire sandbar. There was not another track anywhere to be found. Just that one. I don't know what left it. I know what it looks like at play. I know that that's not something I'm used to finding, 2.5 miles. And then I went to other areas and I found what, looked like, keep going, foot impressions. I even found a few places where there were finger holes. This was like a bowling ball right next to the footprint. You could stick your fingers inside of it, all 5, just like that right there. And it even had the hole. And you can tell that was where a finger was. But I was finding these things, pause, out in places that I would not have expected a person to be. But I still struggle with what is, Sasquatch? What is Bigfoot? Is it, hominid, hominoid? I had all kind of terminology. I had seen all kind of sticks and markers and things that made me say primate. And I seen all kind of other things that even led me into other directions. But then I started capturing things that I could not explain. So hit play, if you would. Now, I just threw in some pictures. These are not relevant. It's mainly the audio that I want you to hear. sitting, and what I try to do a lot of times is I try to have someone with me, so that way I don't have to worry about people coming back and going, oh, well, he did that by himself. He worked. Well, me and a guy from North Georgia were sitting in a camp, and he had looked at me when this happened, and he said, did you hear that? And I said, what? He said, I just heard like a, oh, and then a whistle. And I said, well, no, I didn't hear it, but I have 3 recorders out. I have one on the top of a ridge that's 250 feet above us, and I have another one down in the bottom that's, 100 yards behind us, and I have one on the roof of my truck. So if something hollers, you hear it, I hear it, or we ought to be able to put it up on the recorder. That audio capture was only captured on one recorder, and it was the one that was 250 feet up above us, where I couldn't hear it, but the younger guy evidently could. All right, hit the play. Pause. Somebody said, well, that's a bird. That's a bird. A bird. It could be. It's possible. A bird could go, hey, oh. It's possible. I've heard birds make all kind of noises. When you're sitting there at 2 o'clock in the morning and you hear a bird go, hee-ah-ha, hee-ah-ha, hey, hey. It kind of makes you go, what kind of bird is that? Hit play. Female. She's going, ooh-ah-ha, ooh-ah-ha. I don't know what ooh-ah-ha means. But the last time, she paused it, last time that she called out, actually what had happened is this was a case in Pell City, Alabama, where this woman contacted us and she said, we got something strange going on, around our house. And I said, really? And she said, yeah. I said, I don't know what it is, but there's something strange going on. My little girl keeps waking up in these nightmares and all this stuff, and we think there might be a Sasquatch behind the house. And so we went, and along with some other investigators, and we set up thermal cameras, and I put out a recorder, this audio recorder, the first night. And they found the audio recorder. But the audio recorder also captured what sounds like a female, and it sounds like she's going, ooh-ha, and you hear the male off in the distance go, yes, or wang, or one, then you hear her go, ooh-ha, and you hear this happen 3 times, and on the 3rd time when she does it, you hear the dogs in the neighborhood bark. Well, we left those FLIRs, those thermal cameras, for almost 4 months and didn't get one thing, because it was almost as if they knew it and therefore they were keeping their distance. Hit play. So then I started really paying attention to audio. That was wood knocks. I thought, all right, that's a coyote. It's going to be a good night. I didn't hear the wood knocks. Well, that's a coyote, great. Man, I can't wait. This is going to be good. Next thing I found, I had my bear mace in my hand, the closet. Rewind that back there for just a second. This last one. Pause. What had happened on that night parked my truck, I got a little Bronco too, and I walked to where the metal gate was going into management, and I placed the recorder on top of the pole of the gate, turned around, walked back to my truck. Well, in the process of me walking back to the truck, which was 50 yards away, is when the wood knocks were done. Pow, 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 pow. A friend of mine who was a police officer, he said, "Oh, those were gunshots." No, they weren't gunshots. If they'd been gunshots, I'd probably been gone because I didn't hear them. I know I would have heard gunshots. But then I pulled out a FLIR, and when I pulled out the FLIR is when it went the first call. And then I put it on the tire of my Bronco and turned it on. And when I turned it on, 50 feet to my right is when he goes, "Ah," and it seemed like it was forever. And then it sounded like a Clydesdale horse running through the woods as he took off. Since that's happened, it's almost like I can't get him to come back. But then, we'll put out recorders, and some of this evidence I have, like I work with other research groups. This is not all just solo about Paul. He works with other research groups. He also has others that contribute equipment-wise, like Facebook Find Bigfoot. There are others that are involved. And that's what I found is that when people put their heads together, they tend to get things done. And so I got another colleague named Roger Whitehead, who's a Northwest Alabama Bigfoot, and he helps out in a lot of ways by collecting audio and collecting, he doesn't have thermal footage, but collecting, pictures and whatnot. But he collected a piece of audio that was very, very unusual. So I hit play. Pause. The recorder sat there in a limestone quarry that had been abandoned for like all night. And out of all of that audio footage, the only thing captured was a voice going, "Whoa-cha." I don't know what "whoa-cha" means, but the more I hear, the more I start thinking, I hear a lot of similarities to Native American culture, Native American language. And then I'll never forget when Franklin County, Alabama was hit in 2011 by tornadoes that killed 23 people. And I went and I volunteered my services. And in volunteering those services, I actually helped out a Cherokee Indian that the way he made his living was he made longbows and he sold them. I'm sitting there and I'm talking to this gentleman, and me being dumb like I am sometimes, I said, "Got any cool Bigfoot stories?" And he just kind of looked at me like, I was rude, and he said, "You best leave them alone or someone's going to get hurt." And I said, "Well, I didn't mean anything by it. I just thought you might have some cool stories about Sasquatch." He said, "Let me tell you what my father's." Now this is what he's telling me. He said, "My father's told that when they came to this country, there was a tribe of people already here. They were much larger and more fierce than we were. They also discovered they were competing for some of the same food sources. So in order to avoid conflict and war with this tribe, my father's made up stories about them, about how they would steal your children. They were cannibals, monsters." He said, "But we lived alongside of them without any problems for a long time. And then he did this." He said, "Till you came along," and he pointed at me. He said, "You come here and you take the red man off his land and you kill the buffalo for sport. You take the black man, you put him in chains and make him your slave. But worse than that, you fight and kill amongst yourselves without remorse. Sasquatch has nothing to do with you. You're a dangerous creature." That really shook me. It really did. So then I started going about my research a little more respectful. and not just running around out in the woods beating on trees and trying to, do like. But I did shoot some episode of Finding Bigfoot. Go ahead and hit play. This is Century Rock, a place they like to come to. And this is where I shot the episode with Finding Bigfoot. It was in Sylacauga, Alabama, 30 miles south of Birmingham, that I got invited to pause to this location. Now the FLIR that I was provided came from a group of men, individuals that came together and decided to pool their resources to try and to get better evidence and footage of Bigfoot. And they put together this equipment, and they take it and they just provide it to researchers at no charge. And you've probably seen some of their work, Facebook Find Bigfoot. There's some other individuals that are involved that they have helped tremendously in the field of research. But they provided me with a FLIR, and that's Pathfinder IR. I've got it back there on my table if you want to look at it. I think Darren has one and several others. But what it does is it picks up the heat signature. And what's crucial about this particular one, Pathfinder IR, is the fact that it sees through smoke. Well, this night I had been invited to come down to a 9,000 acre hunting club in Sylacauga, Alabama. And I get down there, and here's the campsite. And you see it's not much. There's a couple of fold-up chairs, a little barbecue grill. I mean, we're sitting basically at the edge of a green field next to the woods. We had a fire built. There's one guy that's sitting there playing a guitar. Another guy was just, he was just sitting there listening with a microphone taped on top of his hat. We look strange sometimes doing research. And then there I was looking at them like, thinking, what have I done? Who is these nuts? They're sitting out here in the dark with their guitars and they're singing. And one would actually stand up and he'd go stand at the edge of the woods and he'd say a few words. And I looked at the other guy and go, what did he just say? I don't know, it's something in Spanish or something like that. I'm going, Sasquatch speaks Spanish? Man, but then they said, well, hey, let's go walking down to the lake, which is about a half-mile walk. And I said, okay, well, wait, before we go down there, let me take the FLIR and set it up to watch our camp as we're gone. So I take the FLIR out of the box, I put it all together, and I hit power, and it's got a little view screen about not much bigger than an iPhone, and hit play. But I'm looking at the screen, and of course, this is what a FLIR looks like. The left side is without, the right side is with, and that's a deer. This particular Pathfinder IR is made for this purpose, to see deer on the road when you're driving down the road so you don't wreck your car. These particular FLIRs, I believe, came off of BMW plate. That's what people will look like. You can see, Paul, you can see that the guy, you can see his pants, you can see his shirt. That's what people are going to look like. They're going to have little breakups here and there because not all areas are the same temperature and the heat is not as much. I turn mine on, hit play, and I'm looking at this little monitor. Pause. And this is the view of the area I'm looking at through the monitor. This is what I see. And you can see the chairs, you can see where we were. That's actually my truck that's to the far right. And if you look to the left, you'll see a tree that has another pine tree kind of beside it, and the pine tree looks black. Play. Because there's no temperature on it now, it's cold. Here's the original footage. Go ahead and hit play.